Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our Brunch and Learn for our intelligent order management. And you're all wondering probably what intelligent order management is. It is a omni-channel order management platform which is composable that was recently released by Microsoft. And as we go through it, we'll talk about the architecture, we'll talk about the value proposition, why you may or may not be using it. And about halfway through, my coworker Marty will give a bit of a presentation on the actual product, all the capabilities and how to build out business scenarios. And to introduce the participants, Marty and myself, Abby, will be presenting. Here's the agenda that we will use. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about a composable supply chain approach and why we are seeing more and more publishers, including Microsoft, using this composable approach to not only supply chain applications, but in general, many applications. We'll do a quick overview of IOM, the capabilities. We'll take a look at the ecosystem of connectors that Microsoft already has that work with this IOM product, and more being added to the library every day. And then we will walk through the IOM basic setup overview, the user interface, insights, reporting, BI, and all of the neat things that come with IOM. Great, let's jump right into it. So we talked about composable applications. What does that really mean? So think of composable applications as solutions that bridge the gaps between systems. Now, let's say you're running an ERP, be it a Microsoft product or SAP or something, and there's a particular piece of functionality that's not really offered, but it's becoming more and more important. Well, you're not going to throw out the whole ERP and get something that has that functionality. Traditionally, we used to build out massive customizations and custom software. In the world of composable apps would essentially be a plugin. Think of it as a modular software building block that'll interlock with your existing systems, right? Without a lot of integration work and development and all of that. And using a low-code, no-code type of approach, okay? Composable apps, we're seeing more and more of them for Microsoft, for example, supply chain insights and things like that. And they're really built out on three key principles. Modularity. End users can now assemble, reassemble, and replace applications based on precise business and market needs as they change. I think the supply chain shocks of the past 2 years have taught us how quickly the world can change. The next principle is connectedness. Okay, gone are the days of building out pipelines for complex two-way integrations and things like that. Composable apps are designed to talk to each other and host systems, share the data, enable visibility, and make it much easier to collaborate up and down the supply chain. And extensibility is the third principle, where companies can now customize, scale up or scale down, add new apps as your changing business environment dictates that you need new functionality, right? And all of this with a low-code platform where it makes life a lot simpler, quicker. Time to value is orders of magnitude less than building out customizations. So that was composable, and you'll see why it's relevant with intelligent order management. One of the things that has happened over the past, years of ERP development and evolution, a lot of our applications have grown up in silos. We've got systems of engagement, right? How do I communicate with my customer? What is that touch point? Then we've got these internal systems where we execute what the customer wants us to do, how that communication works. We've got planning, your standard S&OP, your balancing of supply and demand. And then you've got external factors that are affecting these all of the time. For example, logistics, as we've seen over the past 2 years. Market conditions, global geopolitical conditions, all of these have to get factored in to meet customer demand nowadays. And what we see is a lot of these systems are disconnected. Yes, they share data in a one-way or two-way manner, but at no point are you evaluating all of these different things using AI-based execution tools to give you true insights. What should I do? Actionable insights is what we're now looking for. So let's get into why intelligent order management can give you some of these things across your order management platform. So just a few trends we wanted to talk about a little bit here. Low-code platforms, all right? By 2023, over 90% of the top 20 low-code platform services will include composition, orchestration, integration. And these are the three things that IOM really gives us. IOM is built on the Power Platform technology, so you will see some of that easy integration. Visibility. We now need to look across, outside our four walls, through our vendors to their vendors. Very important for retailers, CPG market, and things like that. And advanced analytics, AI, data science. We are generating a huge amount of data. We're evaluating a huge amount of data. We need advanced analytics and AI to turn that data into actionable insights. Tell me what I should do now to proactively head off a supply chain situation. That's what we're aiming towards. This is a high-level overview of what IOM does, and I'll just quickly go through the middle box to make sure that you guys understand what it's really doing. Obviously, in the top left, order capture connectors. Where are my orders coming in from? In this omni-channel world that we live in, it could be e-commerce orders, it could be EDI orders, it could be third-party orders, all kinds of streams coming in. We've got connectors, and more and more companies are now using third-party delivery or fulfillment houses to do all of that. All of those connectors are living within IOM, and this list and library of connectors is growing every day. All right, now that we've got the order in, what do? We've got to orchestrate the order. I might have all kinds of business rules that apply specifically to a customer, to a region. Let's say I have a rule that says this customer doesn't accept partial orders, and the order is made up of a manufactured item that my factory makes. It's made up of a distributed item that I buy and resell. They're sitting in two different warehouses. I can set up all of these rules using a drag and drop interface to actually orchestrate the order quickly as new business rules change, as new contracts are signed. All of this has intelligence built under it. It's an AI-driven optimization for order fulfillment. Okay, where do I have the inventory? What is the shortest distance? What is the lowest cost? All the time giving you real-time inventory visibility as things are happening across your whole organization. All of these things are contained within this platform. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the value prop of why a company would use IOM while we talk about some of its capabilities. So the first area we've touched on is fulfillment. Incoming orders are really the lifeblood of any company in an inventory-related business. Okay, we've got easy ways to capture the order. We can do rules-based order orchestration easily. It's really to the level where a user could create a business rule to handle a particular type of order, a particular type of product, a particular customer with special rules. And the data is real-time all the way through an intelligent fulfillment engine. It is continuously evaluating using AI, giving you true insights to do proactive things as opposed to, oh no, the order is late, what do we do about it? You can automate and model responses to your customers as you run into different constraints. Whether that response is an EDI type response or just an email saying, hello, Mr. Customer, your order was picked from 2 warehouses and here's your 2 tracking numbers. And also a big cost to companies is managing returns. IOM does a very nice job of communicating and managing returns. Sorry about that, just automating here. Okay, the next area that we want to talk about is managing the entire order life cycle. What do we mean by the entire order life cycle? It's the time from when I capture the order to acknowledge the order, manage changes to the order, process the order, maybe allocate inventory, reserve inventory, send it to a warehouse, send it to a 3PL company, ship it, deliver it, provide proof of delivery. That is the entire order life cycle. IOM does a very nice job in terms of managing that life cycle. And earlier we talked about how easy it makes it to create unique business rules to manage this life cycle. Because, we're getting more and more to the point where every customer has different requirements. And we also talked about addressing proactively constraints that arise as we're fulfilling orders. I'm going to walk you through some quick BI-based screens here, as you can see. Real-time information all the time. Again, we talked about returns and how most systems don't focus on returns, and continuous insights as to what's happening with your order fulfillment organization. The next area that IOM does for you is adapting to a changing business model. What do we mean by that? More and more customers are asking for unique, commercial customers perhaps are asking for unique handling on their orders. We may have different partners that have different processing requirements. Hey, I need an email the moment you get the order, as opposed to, hey, I want you to send an EDI, advanced ship notification, when you ship my order within 35 minutes. All of those business rules can get created quite easily using a low-code, no-code interface. Enhances collaboration so you can proactively see risk. And as e-commerce gets more and more prevalent and companies go more and more direct to customer, you need this capability to quickly design a new order flow and deploy it in hours rather than weeks. Continuous overviews, the interface is very modern looking. This right here is something that Marty will get into more detail, but this is an example of how you build out an order flow with all of the business rules. We talked a little bit about partners and connectors. FedEx is an example of one of their first connectors that they built where freight as a service now gets enabled. FedEx is not the only one. There are several more. And within that, within the IOM platform, as you can see, there's many conditions that you can modify without having to create a customization, for example, sending a order shipment notice and things like that. And given the nature of its design and being a low code, no code with out-of-box connectors, you can get this up and running in a matter of weeks to a month to months, as opposed to a long time to set up other order management systems. And given that it's a cloud-based software, it scales up very quickly for peak order volume, seasonality, and things like that. And running you through some more examples of connectors. Okay. And the last thing is customer loyalty, customer experience, and how to sustain that. Using something like an IOM with its proactive capability to give you insights will increase your OTIF, or what we call on-time in full fulfillment. More and more companies are getting into more of an omni-channel fulfillment methodology, where a customer might buy at a retail store, e-commerce, all of those things. Keeping all of this together enhances the loyalty of your customer and also gives you real-time order and inventory status across the whole organization, even if you were operating with multiple systems across different business units. Some examples of communication. An example of how you can process your returns. We talked about the ecosystem of connectors. Here is just a handful of them, typical ones. Microsoft is rapidly adding more and more connector partners. This slide here is a link to some videos that if you want more information on this product or more detailed information, you can use these links to get to your videos here. All right, that was it for the PowerPoint slides. Let's get to the real stuff. My coworker Marty will be showing this stuff. And over to you, Marty.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, a great overview there of the system. We're gonna actually dive into an instance of IOM running. Ours actually runs with dual write, and we're gonna show a little bit of how to set up the system, the basic setup for the system.
I'd like to walk you through the back end, pretty much how to set up IOM, Intelligent Order Management. They do give you a wizard type interface. It takes you to certain areas and it gives you the available functionality that you can actually configure. So I'm going to walk through that a little bit and show you how things get set up. So first thing is we're in the main area of IOM, and you'll see that we are on the home area, the home page. And you'll notice there are a couple of videos here to walk you through a few things, but there's also some buttons down here that you can actually go and configure the system. This will actually take you into the settings area, and we'll sort of look at what's available in there to set you up. So I click on there, and we get into the settings area, and we're in the admin home area of the system. And you'll notice there's a primary settings here in the middle. And a few things I'm going to walk through are the initial connection, sort of explain that, the provider library, and then we're going to look at fulfillment optimization, and then I'll also show you just a little bit about the system mapping. And once we walk through those, we'll take a look at an orchestration, and it will sort of explain how you use these different pieces in order to run your fulfillment process. So let's take a look at initial connections. And what the initial connections are, basically are connections to the Dataverse. Okay, so In the back end, there's going to be connections into the Dataverse. There's going to be flows created. So all of your providers are going to need to have access to these initial connections. And you can see what's here. There's also an intelligent order management data transformer connection as well. So as you set up your providers, you're asked to actually create new connections to the Dataverse. It helps the provider run, create workflows in the back or flows in the back end that are going to be used in this system. Okay, let's go back to our admin homepage. And I'm going to show you the provider library. Okay, we sort of in the overview in the deck we looked at providers. Now Microsoft has been working with different providers to sort of give you an out-of-the-box functionality to set up a provider. You can take a look here. There's numerous providers in the system. They've actually broken these down into different categories. We have order intake. So you might have big commerce, and an order comes into big commerce, and your provider will send that order onto your system. We can look at tax services. Avalara, they offer both tax service and address verification service. That's available. Delivery, you need FedEx or JB Hunt, Uber Freight, and also ShipStation, which actually goes out and looks at different shipping delivery possibilities, bill, costs, time of transit, and so on. And you could use that to actually determine how you want to deliver. And then we could look at fulfillment, and fulfillment is where you're going to actually fulfill your order. Okay, and there's Flex, there's also Microsoft Finance and Operations, so F&O, and in here is included the fulfillment and returns optimization piece, and we're going to take a look at how you set that up. We see all of the different providers here. I'm going to go into an installed one and sort of explain what happens. So when you select a provider and install it, it's going to ask you to do a couple things. And let's take a look at Avalara. First thing it asks you for is to set up your connections. And as I mentioned before, you need the connection to the Dataverse first, and then you can actually do a connection to the third-party provider. So we look in the bottom right here, we see Avalara Dataverse connection that was set up, and then Avalara connection. Now, most times, you think about this, these third-party providers have some kind of API call in the back end that you could use to get information. You send a request and you get a response back. And what happens here is you're going to be asked to supply, usually it's going to be some kind of key and secret or username and password when you set this connection up. And when that happens and you actually enable this, the IOM system in the back end creates a bunch of different flows and actions that can be used with this provider. And let's take a look at the actions that Avalara actually gets installed in the back end, so you can use these later in your orchestration flow. And you can see that there's two actions that Avalara has, calculate tax and resolve address. So you can resolve an address or calculate tax based on locations in the country. So that's how that works. And as I mentioned, it's kind of an API call. So ShipStation, there's an API interface. If you're a developer, you can go in there and you can create API calls and get responses back and use those in your system. IOM sort of takes this, takes the development part out of it. It has these providers already in the system that you can actually just connect to, and all those API calls become available. There is also just for your knowledge that you can create custom providers. So you can actually go in and look at your library. If one isn't in here and you want to create your own, you can do so. Okay, so next thing I want to take a look at is the fulfillment optimization piece. So let's go back to our home here. And again, we look at the admin home and we see fulfillment optimization. We can just go in here to manage. I'm just going to talk about this. I'm not going to actually go through any setup. Fulfillment optimization it's actually a provider as we saw, but what it does, it creates a microservice in the back end that takes all of your constraints and strategies and your sources and so on and so forth, and uses them to give you your best fulfillment option, where to ship from. As I mentioned, constraints and strategies. Constraints, we'll go in here and just take a look at the various constraints that you have. I'm not going to set any up, but we'll take a look. So you can actually add constraints in the system, maximum distance constraint, respect warehouse timing constraints in case, shipping trucks leave at a certain time and they're done by a certain time of the day. You can respect those timings. You can restrict partial fulfillment of orders if you don't want to be shipping from multiple fulfillment centers and you want it to be, specifically from one. And if you can't fulfill it from one, the order is either put on back order or not processed. And limit number of warehouse constraint too. So again, you limit the number of warehouses that have the ability to fulfill partial fulfillments if needed. So once you create your constraints, you would go back into your fulfillment settings here, and you'd create a strategy. And a strategy is a combination of your constraints. So you create your constraints, you'd go in and create a strategy, and then you would add these constraints to the strategy. So you could see here I have, distance warehouse from warehouses. That's what I was using for these, and an order constraint for the PA warehouse. So you combine all of these, and now your strategy is available for your fulfillment process and your fulfillment provider. How do you run that? How does the fulfillment strategy get put into place? Well, the one thing you can do is you could set a default strategy. So you could have multiple strategies. So you could set this as default. If it's a default strategy, the optimization process will actually look at this for any order that comes through the system. But you can also, if you want to, you can tag an order itself with the strategy. So you might have a customer that needs shipping from a specific supplier. I don't know. I'm just making these up. You can actually assign a strategy to a order. Okay, or you could assign it to an account. Maybe you have a strategy for specific accounts in your system, and through policies and rules and actions, you can actually then, as an order comes in, you can now tag that order for that client or for that customer with a specific strategy. So that's how those are used in the back end. Okay, I'm going to go back there one more time. Just notice too that I talked about constraints, and one of the ones was distances for warehouses. Well, how does it know all that? How does it work on that? Within the fulfillment settings, you can actually set up sources and source lists. So sources would be anything from a warehouse, fulfillment centers. You might have stores that ship as well. So you add all your sources and information, address information, longitude, latitude, and then what you can do is actually create source lists which combine those, right? So I have sources that are basically just warehouse sources in here as an example. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to actually add all of those together into a list. So it combines all these, and I have Eastern warehouses, so Eastern United States warehouses. So then you could use these sources or source lists against your strategy. A strategy can actually work against a source or a combination of sources, so as a source list. Okay, next thing I wanted to go over is mapping. Okay, now mappings basically are used to map different systems to the IOM system. If you're using F&O or supply chain management, you can bypass the mapping, okay, because the system itself is using the internal products. We have in this system, we have dual write running with our F&O system, so our products come in, our orders come in through F&O. There's no need to map products and price lists and warehouses and whatnot. It's actually used using the F&O system. But if you don't, say you might have 3 different intakes. You might have a website. You might be using BigCommerce as well. You might be using Amazon fulfillment or order processing. These orders are going to come in, but there might be different SKUs for your products. Okay, there might be different price list tags. So in order to make it work with intelligent order management, you would go in and you would actually map your information. So you can map anywhere from accounts all the way down to units. Okay, so different names and different systems, you can map these to your current system here, and it'll all work to process your orders using the data within this system. Another piece of the puzzle is inventory. Okay, so you have to fulfill an order. You have to know where the inventory is. It's possible that you only have a certain amount of inventory in each warehouse or each fulfillment center. So IOM gives you the ability to view what inventory is there, track your inventory, import inventory. One thing to note is that if you're using supply chain management, you can actually use that system instead of bringing in the inventory into the IOM system. So there is a communication between supply chain management that uses the internal inventory of that system. But if you don't, say you have to track inventory from different sources, you can actually set up your data sources within IOM, and then you can import your inventory. And as you work through your fulfillment process, you could do soft reservations. And as the order gets fulfilled and shipped, picked and shipped, you can actually send back your update to your inventory to each system. So that's what this area is used for. And we'll see when we look at one of the flows that there is a step or an action that looks at inventory and does a soft reservation, and then tracks that through the whole process. Okay, so we've sort of set up the basic information that we need to run an orchestration flow. Okay, and a flow basically is a set of actions that are put together in order to process process an order, okay, or other things. I mean, we have flows. We're going to take a look at flows. There's different types of flows, but in this scenario, I'm really talking about orders. But let me give you a quick look at what the IOM system comes with out of the box. So we'll take a look at the new flows here. So when you're setting up a new flow, you have 4 options. And we'll take a look here: order orchestration, inventory visibility orchestration, cancel order orchestration, and return order orchestration. Each one of these flows comes with available steps or actions out of the box. So you can create custom actions if you'd like, but as we look at the order orchestration, you'll see that there's a multitude of actions already built into the system, which use the provider events or actions as well as they're added to your system. So let's go back, and I'm just going to open up my sample that I've been working on and give you a look at a sample order orchestration. Okay, so here's our flow. Okay, it's a click and add. It's a, people say drag and drop, but what you're doing is you're adding actions into this flow, and then for each action you have multiple steps that you can add to it. There could be a filtering, there could be an execution policy applied to it. You have provider actions. So we take a look here again. There's my sample. I'm going to click on the add action button just to let you see what's available out of the box for the order orchestration. You can see all these actions and policies that are available here. And again, these are available. And as you add providers, if the provider actions are related to any one of these actions in the system, that action will be available within this step. Okay, within this action. You can see various ones: calculate tax, Avalara would be available within there. Send order acknowledgement, you can do that. Send order shipment, validate address, again, Avalara. Soft reservation, we would use our inventory visibility steps and actions and whatnot in there in order to process or to look at inventory, reserve, and then update. So you can see there's a multitude of steps here. And as I mentioned before, you can create custom actions as well, and you could add those, and you could base events off those and create your own actions as needed. There's also some other elements here. We have conditions and splitters and so on, and you'll see this as we take a look at this sample flow in the system. So I'm just going to show you a couple of these steps and what's involved in a few of these. So as we open this one up, we saw the validation order header and the validate order lines are basically policies. Okay, so I'm going to click on this, and you'll see that on the right, that's where we'd add our information. So we have an action type, okay? We have an input event. When is this triggered? Well, when a new order is ready to be processed, it's triggered. We could apply a filter policy or an execution policy. Policies can be created for both, as I said, filter and execution. A filter policy basically looks at data within the order, and then you could filter on something, maybe an address, maybe a state. You could filter your orders on that. Execution policies also look at data in the order. So you might say, okay, which makes sure there's a quantity of greater than 0. We're not going to process an order with 0 as a quantity. Somebody messed up or the order came in wrong. So you can look at the order execution policy. And another one we can add here, I always mention, is since actions can be associated to execution policies, you might want to give a discount for quantity over, let's say 100. So if we're validate the order line, the order line has a quantity of 100 or more, we can actually, in our action of our execution policy, we can add a discount to that order line. So just keep in mind there's certain things you can do with execution and filter policies. Also, each one of these steps or actions will have an output event, right? So you can either basically succeed or fail. And then the other steps and actions that we create after this will run against these output events, okay? So we can run something against the successful output from the previous action or failed action we can run something against. I mentioned that there was conditions and splitters. We can see how splitter merge might be used in our orchestration flow. Here we have order confirmation. And all it is a splitter, and we're going to do three things. And then we're going to merge back. It's called a splitter merge. We're going to merge back in and keep processing the order. So you can see that this one, we're going to email the customer. We're going to send them an order confirmation that we received the order. We're also going to do a fulfillment optimization. So we're going to send this to our fulfillment optimization provider. So the microservice in the back end, it's going to look at our strategies and our constraints and everything else that we have in there, and it's going to decide the best way to fulfill this. And we could also send an update back to our order source. Say we're using BigCommerce or Amazon or wherever it is, we can actually send a notification back and say, hey, we've received the order and we're in the process of fulfilling it. So look down, we can also see our reservation. Okay, so we have that inventory settings that we set up, and we can use soft reservation. So an order comes in, we can reserve our products until they're actually picked, and that way no one else can order those products, and it takes it out of our inventory until it's completed. Notice too that, you know, when I click on some of these actions, there's different things that are over on the right here. We have action types, of course, input events, like I said, if the fulfillment order succeeded, and then we have provider action. So as you add providers, I think I showed you that earlier, that there are actions that are available based on the action, the main action or the step that you're in. So software reserve inventory, and based on a provider that's been actually added to the system. So as we go down, we could take a look at another split, merge, and you know, here's where we're actually determining delivery carrier. So there's a couple things we're doing here. We're splitting this out. It might be that your sources, your warehouse or your store or wherever your fulfillment center uses different shipping methods, right? Maybe your warehouse just uses FedEx. Maybe your stores can use a multitude of shipping services such as FedEx, UPS, Uber. So here we split this out based on your source. And you can see here we have a filter policy. So we're checking fulfillment source type on the right over here. And if it's a warehouse, we're going to actually send it to our ship station, and it's going to give us the best possible way to ship. And in this middle one here, we're doing a filter policy to look for a source type of store, and we're going to use FedEx. So just an example of how you can actually set up and use this split merge in order to process different orders of different types coming from different fulfillment centers. As we go down, once this carrier processing is done, we send it to fulfillment. Once we've determined where we're going to ship from, how we're going to do it, we're going to actually get the information from the shipping carrier. We're going to have a shipping label. We're going to have tracking number and so on and so forth. And then we send this to our fulfillment center. And our fulfillment center will pick. It'll label, it'll ship, and then we move on to our shipping confirmation. Okay, and again, we're using a split merge because we're going to do a couple things here. We're going to email the customer, let them know that the order's been shipped. We're going to actually we're going to update our inventory. Now that we had a soft reservation, our inventory needs to be updated because we picked and we shipped the item. It's no longer in our inventory. And we would update our order source like we did before, but this time we could say now that your order's been shipped. Here's your tracking number if you want to find out where it is in the process of shipping. And we could move on, and we have in this one, send an invoice and invoice update. Now, you know, a lot of times it's prepaid if you're on a purchasing site, a website or Amazon or whatever. So a lot of times you're not sending an invoice, but say you are maybe a B2B and you're going to ship and then you're going to invoice the client. You can actually add those steps here. So that's a good order orchestration example here. I think it shows you a lot of the steps and how your inputs and your actions on the right can be used in order to fulfill your orders and go through the whole process. We've sort of walked through how to, develop your back-end strategy to fulfill your orders. And once all that's done, IOM kind of runs all that stuff in the back end. There is ways to see what's going on and what the steps are as you go into orders. But I just want to show you a little bit of what's in the system up front for a basic user if you're not actually involved in creating the fulfillment process in the back end. One nice thing about IOM is it comes with a multitude of dashboards. So let's take a look at the insights real quick. We have an order dashboard, and this is Power BI in the back end. So gives you ways to view what's going on, order insights. You can look at the top here. We have tabs, return insights, product insights. One really nice piece of functionality here is that you can edit these dashboards right in the system. Okay, so we're in IOM. I click on this resume editing. and we're basically in Power BI. So you can go in, you can see all of your data sources over here, and you can actually update and create whatever you need in here. Very nice functionality to do this on the fly for somebody in the system. And on the left here, you can see all the different areas they can go to. So we can look at sales order, fulfillment orders, returns, so on and so forth down the line here. So available right at your fingertips. A lot of these will give you a dashboard at the top, some kind of a chart or graph, and at the bottom will give you a view of the records that are associated to it. You can see that there's active orders, and down below you can see the orders coming in and what where they're at in the process. So. And as sales orders come in the back end, it runs through your orchestration flow. They will be turned into fulfillment orders, and then, of course, they will be shipped and fulfilled. So there's a status for all these as it goes through the system. Another thing is demand planning. I talked about inventory and so on. There's other aspects, of course, to demand planning, but you can get some product insights into your system, and you can look at inventory dashboards to see how your inventory is doing on the fly, which is kind of nice. So we'll just open that one up. Maybe we'll use the product insights as an example here. Product insights gives you insights into your orders, what's been processed, so on and so forth. But yeah, you could take a look at what's being used, what you might have to order up on, make sure you have more items in stock. Okay, and as we scroll down a little bit on the left here in our site map here, we have the monitoring. So we can actually look at errors, make sure nothing's erring out on us, make sure things are processing. We can look at quantities. This is the anomalies. And we've got some other things, order delays, so on and so forth. If we look at our errors, we could look at provider errors. So maybe our inbound isn't working correctly, or some of the orders aren't getting processed, or the intake is broken somehow. There's some transformation files in the back end that process and turn an external order, maybe from BigCommerce or something, into a IOM order. So maybe something isn't working correctly. And we could also look at actions that are failing and orchestration steps that might have errors as well. There's other stuff, background jobs and alerts. We can also look at provider insights, which is nice. We have a dashboard to look at inbound requests and outbound requests. Okay, so again, a plethora of dashboards, reports, and charts to keep you up to date on what's going on. And at the bottom here, we have our orchestration. So you can do a little bit of management down here, take a look at your flows and policies as well from this area without being in the settings area. But that's about it. Microsoft has been diligently working on this system for, I guess, the past couple of years. If I recall, it's been out maybe 2 years or so. I could be wrong, but they've been putting a lot of effort and I think resources into building this out. They made a major update recently. The look and feel has changed dramatically. They keep adding providers, so you want to come back and check if the providers are available that you're looking to use. Again, otherwise you can create a custom provider. But Microsoft is definitely pushing this for your order fulfillment processing. And again, if you have F&O, supply chain management, you can actually connect these up very easily and use IOM for your fulfillment process.
But those two videos give you an idea of the actual system that's in place and how to set it up a little bit and use the front end. We'd like to open it up to some questions. You can actually ask questions within the system. So feel free, Avi, if you want to add anything to the presentation.
Well, we don't have any questions. I guess I'll say thank you all for attending. And please get in touch if you have any questions that you didn't think about now.